We really just want parents, like you said, to have that education to make that informed decision for their family. We don't tell you not to get any shots. No, we don't say to get all of them. It's really the decision you're comfortable with. A lot of us have stopped vaccinating once you get enough information, but that's the other part too. I think kind of being that beginning mom looking into this is getting that tribe also.
Welcome to the Experience Miracles podcast, where we help parents find hope, answers, and drug-free help to overcome your child's chronic health challenges. I'm your host, Dr. Tony Ebel, and I'll be sharing my experiences as both a dad and a doctor on every episode. I can take the latest science and neurology of healing and break it down in the most simple and relatable way possible. We'll take on the toughest topics and answer your biggest questions through interviews with other amazing parents and leading experts, leaving you with practical action steps that you can take to help your child heal and thrive. It's time to expect and experience miracles. Let's get started. What's up, Experience Miracles community? We have another very impactful, very informative conversation for you today. My interview with these two courageous, impact-making, literally, seriously, in their state and in their communities, and it'll spread into other states throughout this country and world as well. Gabby and Lindsey are joining us today from God's country, the Cyclone State. These two represent Informed Choice, Iowa, and they join us on the show today, and boy, do we get after it. We get after the vaccines conversation. We get after the medical choice and medical freedom for our children conversation. We really get into it because it's not something I know really well. How do you make policy change? How do you reach out to those who have the ability to make a change within our states, within our cities, within our community like that? Because we see what's happening with our families, right? And these two incredible women are going to share their stories as to how they, through their kids and through just where their hearts are, where their heads are, really how they got into this work. But this is what we can say. It's more important than ever for families to have the tools, the knowledge, and truly be able to make informed health decisions. For these last couple of generations, really honestly, the medical world just got away with it. They just got away with gaslighting us. They just got away with shoveling, kind of hiding stuff under the rug. They got away with not even close to telling us the whole truth about the science behind these different interventions, not just the vaccination conversation, although that's probably the big one, right? That for a lot of our families, we've always deep down wondered, Is this really what we need to do? Is all of these all at once safe? Are all of these chemicals really in there? Have they really tested them out, against kids who don't get them, or this, that, and the other thing? And then you could go on down the list. Think back to COVID and how many freedoms, even right here in the USA, they tried to take away from us, how much they tried to force into us, into our bodies, into our kids, how much they threatened to take away our livelihoods by not doing that. I mean, I could go on in this introduction, but I really want to save the conversation for Gabby and Lindsey because thankfully they're in Iowa. They have stepped up and they're doing something about it. They have said, hey, it isn't that everybody should do this or everybody should do that. It's just that every parent should be able to choose. So Gabby serves as the vice president of Informed Choice Iowa and has been deeply involved in their legislative and community events following her daughter's birth and all that transpired there. It's really a powerful story. And Lindsey, she shares with us, she's got a very chemistry science-loving background, so it was a fun dance. Lindsey, me loving neurology, not loving chemistry, her loving chemistry, and then me weaving in the neurology with her genius. But Lindsey has a science background and many years on the legislative team, helping guide families and policymakers alike while raising her own four beautiful Cyclone State, raising up kids. And I love this conversation. I am looking forward to more of these conversations right in the heart of what we need to know, need to do, and need to shift within every state and every community. As an Iowa farm boy who married my beautiful, incredible wife, and with that was, lovingly pulled across the Mississippi River into this great state. Can you tell I'm gritting my teeth there, of Illinois? And I love where I live. I love everything about it and the community I serve. I just wish when it came to legislation and informed choice and actually having a choice more so, that Illinois operated a lot more like Iowa. And I'm sure many of you live in a state where you're like, we roll like Iowa. And many of you live in a state or a country where you're like, we wish we did too. Well, let's do something about it all together. And when we learn from Gabby and Lindsay, we can learn what they're doing there so we can model it and create that impact in our states, in our communities, in our countries. So this is an important one. And this is one I want you to listen all the way through. Whether you are local to Iowa or not, I strongly suggest you go to their website and you just check it out. Just see what they're up to, because it's wild. It's impactful. Just like Leah with Stand for Health Freedom and quite a few other people we've had on and will have on. They're making it happen. Let's get into this interview with Gabby and Lindsay. Enjoy. All right. Well, Gabby, Lindsay, joining us from the literal God's country, the greatest state that's ever been there, the Cyclone State, which I know both of you agree with entirely. Huge Cyclone fans coming from the state of Iowa there.
I'll watch sports.
Great answer. Well, if I do my job well and we have, this awesome, collaboration, helping serve kids and families, and, I can score enough points that way, maybe we can get you in some Cyclone gear. What
there
do
you
think?
go.
Okay. Perfect. Well, the worst choice, speaking of informed choice, you could ever make in your life is to go to Iowa when Iowa State is right there. So that's a different informed choice that thankfully I had, to go down the right road. But everybody listening, you heard their full introduction, but these two rock stars are really doing so much work right in the heart of that, right in the heartland, right in the heart of Iowa and Des Moines. And so what I want to know from you guys, and whoever feels inclined, go first. When I get to know the mission, and we're going to get into the mission, we're going to get into the why, but usually there's something that happened, right? Usually there's a personal, family, community, something usually ticks us off and wakes us up and kind of sends us into a purpose and a mission like this. So can you go all the way back into the backstory of when this work started for you two and what the catalyst was that did that?
Well, yeah, probably a bad point to mention that I graduated from the University of Iowa.
That's why I went so hard right at you, buddy. That's how I show my love and welcome and appreciation to my guests. Yeah.
Totally fine. I was raised a Cyclone and married a Cyclone, so we are Cyclone fans in our house as well. But yes, it was kind of by happenstance right when we were having children that I had a couple of friends who mentioned that they weren't going to get their children vaccinated. And that just blew my mind. I had never heard of that before. And it was kind of intriguing. I am someone who likes to research and ask questions. And so I found that kind of interesting. And one of my friends just said, just look at the ingredients before you make your decision. And I said, okay. So I went and looked at the ingredients. And for me, I used those in the lab when I was at graduate school at the University of Iowa. I studied Ebola virus viral entry. And so we were working with those reagents when we were making virus in the lab. And so for me, that was the first stop was like, whoa, we're injecting this stuff into our children because I've purified virus before. You don't get everything out. You have cell culture in there. You have the reagents in there, right? Formaldehyde, trypsin, all of those things. So for me, it was, okay, that's interesting. But then the second part was the fact that we had this schedule, right? I'm an 80s baby, early 80s, if I'm being honest. That was 3 vaccines, 7 different antigens, but 3 vaccines to now this schedule of 72, 13 to 14 different, supposed infections that we're going to be vaccinating against. And to me, that was just like, whoa, that is crazy town. Like, we don't talk about in immunology how often we should be stimulating the immune system, whether that be with whatever's in our environment versus artificially through vaccination. So for me, that was like the first question is, well, do we need to be doing this? Why are we doing so many? And so at first we just told our doctor we weren't going to, and that kind of set us off. We told them we were going to wait and decide, which one we're going to do along the way. And the more you research, the more you say no. And we chose that route, and that was a long time ago. That was my oldest. He's a teenager. But it was during the height of the measles pandemic out in California when they were passing SB 277, that a group of moms here in Iowa, we had the Vax bus come through town. And we said, we need to do something because we don't have anybody in the state, that we weren't organized. And the coasts tend to dictate policy. And so we could see how quickly those exemptions were going to be getting removed if it was successful out there. And so I offered to help.
Yeah, amazing. Very personal to then community, right? Like, hey, this is what we're going to investigate. This is what we're going to decide for our family. Very personal, very protected, right? As an American, that gets to be there. So thank you for sharing that, because none of us have to, right? And then in the same breath, you see that experience, you see your friends, you kind of get into this community, which has always existed, right? Just maybe a little bit more in the quieter, areas. And now it started, you felt the need to help in the political world. Did you have you're a lab lady. Did you have any political that's when I meet Leah, and I get it. Her case history, right? Leah, she had some training in that world. So I was like, okay, it seems a good step for you to be able to be like, oh, I know how to do this. I don't know that for any of us three, you didn't have any experience there, did you?
No, none of us. I mean, we just had to learn on the fly. And the last governmental experience I had was I was on the government at my college.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. If that's not a mom, if that's not, okay, I'm going to jump all the way as I do into the clouds with this. And what's really happening with every granular conversation is a perfect example of the bigger, full conversation. Moms are going to make all of this change happen in their family first, in their community second, and across this country. It will be moms who your story was, what the heck? You're intrigued. You were interested. Now, going back, and then Gabby, we're going to go to yours. If we could just, with this conversation especially, vaccination, the medicalization of our childhood, and our children and our whole world, like if we could just get people interested and intrigued, honestly, there's a lot of different paths. Now, your biochemistry is your jam. So for you went right into the formaldehyde and you were like, whoa, I don't like what I see or smell here. This doesn't make sense. I've had a very similar story, for example, with our attorney here locally. You couldn't have had somebody who was more closed off to, this is just what we do. Everybody gets vaccinated. That's the schedule. And when I could just get him intrigued, when I just said, hey, Jeremy, for your family, for your wife, for your kids, can we just chat about it? Your decision is wherever this lands is going to be the exact right decision for your family. But it's really something that as a father, we owe it to our children to at least investigate. Now, because he's attorney, he found the fact that you can't sue him. He found out like, oh my goodness, this smells like a fish. This is a fish. So he didn't go into chemistry. He's not that interested in the immunological, physiological, biochemistry conversation that like you and I would love, right, Lindsay? It's where we made our decision for our family. He looked at it that way. And so I just wanted to bring that as kind of a pull a thread from your story. We can change the community if we can just get people to open their eyes a little bit, to open their hearts a little bit, to open their minds a little bit. And then we can take it from there and we can say, hey, do you want the science? Here it is. Do you want the truth about the systemization and the politicalization of this conversation that has nothing to do with our kids' health and everything to do with profits? You choose the road you want to go once we've got you, in the bus, and away we go. Awesome. Lindsay, thank you. Gabby, how did you jump on board? What was your...
Yeah. My daughter is 8 years old now. And right before I went to the hospital, my mom was like, hey, have you looked into this? And I said, well, no, like everyone does it. Like I would have heard something if it was really that bad for my child, so I kind of pushed her to the side. And now being a mom, I realized how hard that was to breach that conversation with your children. And that's something we hear a lot at different events that we go to. So I was starting to contemplate it. Do I want to do this? Do I not? We were in the hospital and I had to have an emergency C-section. So they are pumping all sorts of things into me. I have the epidural. I'm loopy. I had her come back in and I'm in the room alone. And the nurse goes, we need you to sign all these papers. So I signed all of them. I probably would have done the Hep B anyway, because at that point I hadn't made up my mind, but there was no one else in the room there with me. And then my mom gave me the Truth About Vaccine series, and my daughter was days old. I was struggling to breastfeed, and here I am watching these videos, and I couldn't even watch the whole thing. And I knew at that moment, I know I definitely am not following the schedule, but there's still so much pressure from society, and I don't have any of the chemistry background that Lindsay does to like really question it. And so we did go ahead and we did the 1D tap because my neighbor had pertussis, and that was, again, well before I knew the whole sheep's and wolf clothing, even that commercial that did get pulled, because it doesn't really stop the transmission of the virus. And so we just stopped there. I lost some friends right away. I was told that I was going to kill my child. So my ex-husband and I at the time kept it very quiet. We were just like, we're just going to go under the radar. And then COVID happened, and I had their first conference, and I went and I learned more. And I haven't stopped talking about it since.
Yeah.
And it's just like those little drips that you can do. You say, what can connect with that person to get them? Well, if you're in the hospital, is your child having sex and sharing needles on their first day of life? No. Well, then what do you need this vaccine for? And then you add on the layer that it was only safety studied for 5 days. I feel like that one really starts to make people without any medical background go, wait, what?
Yeah. There's just so much here, right? We could literally, and you guys do an incredible conference. We're going to talk about it. I get to come jam and be a part of it. You can do 20-hour lectures on each of these individual conversational, scientific, political component. You can literally do, and parents, we want you to. We're going to guide you. We're going to support you. We're going to empower you. These rabbit holes are ones you got to get down. Because we can start really high picture. We can say, are kids today more healthy or more sick than they were before? It's not even close. The numbers are alarming, frightening, frustrating, maddening, all the above. It's horrible. It's terrible. Over half of kids are chronically sick. So then you start looking at that and you get a little bit closer to the ground and you say, okay, well, what are we doing differently? Well, pregnancy and prenatal care, markedly different, right? Filled with absolute overwhelm, force, sign this, to this, labor and delivery, so many more interventions, and then so many more injections, right? So many more toxins. All three of those have changed, which adds up to it. But then the vaccination conversation, I love this. And Gabby, if we could, and that's my job here as podcast guy today. I always feel bad when I'm on this side of the microphone, when I'm the interviewer. I don't mind when people pry at me. I'm like, tell me more about that. And then when I'm like, yeah, I would love to. Nobody's ever asked me. But then when I do it to you guys, I'm like, oh, tell me more. I want to know more.
Yeah, what you got for us?
Good. Thank you. Because you got it. And two great stories here. Lindsay, definitely science brain, science background, same as me. And so that probably was a great place for Lindsay and her family to strengthen their resolve in their decision. But one thing you said, Gabby, so much pressure. There's no way. There's actually no adjective to describe how much pressure society, pediatrician, and so many others. Thank goodness you had your mom. That's an outlier. That's, a lot of families, they would add grandma to the pressure brigade, right? Of doing the vaccines. So let's go into those early moments. How did you and your family literally start to stand up against that pressure? You gave us some, give us more. What did you find that started to strengthen your resolve and galvanize your guys' decision to not do any more than what you did?
Well, I didn't tell my ex-husband at first. I took my daughter to the visits and I just said, hey, I just didn't feel like I wanted to do it today. We can always go back.
Cool.
And so I kind of avoided a little bit of the conflict at first until I knew for sure this was the right decision we wanted to make for our family. And, my mom had shared that when MMR came out, the nurse had told her when my sister went in, like, hey, this is a new one. And my mom's like, well, then you're not giving it to my kid if you don't know it's going to work. I started reading a lot, but the biggest thing I think that I did is I found a pediatrician that didn't push us.
Awesome.
And so when we went into the doctor's office for those first well baby checks, there were no vaccines in the room waiting for us.
Yeah.
The nurses knew that it was my decision as the parent what I wanted to do. And anytime I went back, there was no question asked. And we honestly stopped going to the well baby checks after 12 months because she was healthy. We go to the chiropractor regularly. Yeah. And that's the other big thing that I tell parents too is for your back to school visits, go to the chiropractor. Exactly. You don't have to go to the doctor's office and there's zero pressure on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just a lot of talk about the nervous system and maybe a few bad jokes that have to do with the sponge, right? That's just good healing vibes. That's what you get over there. Okay. This is cool. I'm pulling on this. And Lindsay, I can see you nodding because you're like, yes, this is, because what we want to do is we want to take our stories. We want to take the science that we all now know and we want to turn it into actionable. Let me say the same word differently. Action steps for families right in the thick of that overwhelm, storm, and indecision. The number one thing we tell every one of our parents when this begins, which is where you were in those early months, punt, pause, call time out. If you don't feel fully convicted in certain one way or another, don't. You're not required, especially when they're 2 months, 6 months, 12 months, when they're super, super little, and you're never required, by the way, later on in school. We'll get into exemptions. But you can't go back. Well, and this isn't meant to be doomsday, but this is just how it works in that moment. You can't, it's actually the same with an adjustment. This is our decision we make clinically. Like, are we done adjusting? Because if I add an extra adjustment to a kiddo, the good thing about adjustments is, they're ridiculously safe, especially compared to vaccinations, but you still can't take it away. And so, but you could always add it in later, right? So parents listening, the most effective strategy when you're right smack in the middle of this decision-making matrix is to just give yourself time. The second one, Gabby, you crushed it. Get a second opinion. Get a different doctor who is going to work in partnership instead of pressure. If you have a doctor who does not entertain questions, does not answer questions, or when they do, they dismiss the questions by answering the questions, right? I believe my teens, I think it's called gaslighting. It took me a long time to figure out what the heck that is. But if they do that, that's not your doctor. That's not your doctor. They must work in partnership with you. Okay. All right. Coming back around here, Lindsay. You said earlier, my science. Okay. Did you like chemistry? You actually chose to go to a postgraduate education with more lab work?
I did. I enjoyed laboratory work a lot and developing research and problem solving, like how to design a study in order to figure out, a solution. So my background is microbiology, so the little stuff. But I do have a minor in chemistry, and we do take a lot of biochemistry. But
I have the same construct of liking to investigate theories and problems and put them together, but remove all microbiology and chemistry. I really wish, because I'm also early 80s. I think we might have been in the same class. If you'd have gone to Iowa State, you could have done all my chemistry homework and lab again for me. And I would have just been there to entertain us all. Really could have used you about 20 years ago. Okay. Oh, yes. Never mind. We shouldn't have said a number, right? Back in the day. Okay. Miss Lindsay. All right. So here's where I'm going with that. There's a lot of quite questionable, horrible, this is pretty obviously not good neurochemistry science when we start looking at the ingredients. Yes. But you said something that no one else talks about enough. Are we supposed to be stimulating the immune system this often, this many times? Take that and run with that for us. Nobody teaches this science, and you are right on a very big issue that we shouldn't be poking the bear when it's young and immature, and then we shouldn't be poking the bear that often on a random schedule. Just because they turn 6 months, this is the time to say, hey, immune system, today's your day. Let it rip. Well, it's just that science.
And I can't say it's necessarily all like my novel theories or anything. There's been so many great people who've been in this movement a lot longer than I have. But just the fact that, why are we asking more questions in regards to the medical system, right? Third leading cause of death in America, medical error. They're not gods. They don't know everything. Like, we have to be proactive in asking questions if we want good quality care. A big one that I like to point out is the fact that you're covered head to toe inside. You're like a donut in microbes. Okay, those are what I love most. The microbes, the tiny stuff. So fungus, Bacteria, viruses, you're covered inside and out with trillions of these guys, almost more than your actual number of cells in your body. But they work alongside us to keep us healthy. They actually have a lot of uses. In your digestive system, they're making vitamins, they're digesting food, right? They're doing a whole bunch of things. On your skin, they help protect you from other pathogens that you come into contact with. But we're vaccinating for 13 or 14 different infections, a few strains of each, because there's lots of strains, right? Over 200 different types of human papillomavirus out there. How does this math make sense? There's literally thousands of viruses, microbes, bacteria, and we're vaccinating for 13, and it's the end of the world if we don't do it. So the numbers just don't add up. We literally have been around for thousands of years as a species, and we've evolved this way and survived to work within our environment. Yeah. So, yeah, to me, it just did not make a lot of sense that we should be then like, why, like from that standpoint, the numbers. But then when you talk about the immune system, like a lot of the issues we have in our chronic health right now is autoimmunity, autoimmune conditions. And I have several members of my family with autoimmune conditions. Beyond just allergies, you know, we talk hypothyroid, Hashimoto's, and you probably know more about this than I do, but we aren't even tracking it. We haven't actually been tracking this at a nationwide level to know how much autoimmune conditions have drastically increased, which is why they're trying to amp up getting all of our data. Side note.
Yep.
But, you know, how we encounter things in the environment is very different than injecting it right into your body.
Yes, it is.
You have a skin, you have mucosa. All of those systems work to help prevent infection and prevent overstimulation. And so when you start to overstimulate, things get out of control with your immune system cells, your cytokine storm, mast cells, I mean, we don't want to go too far into the science here, but that's what I love.
I do. I would love to teach 20 hours with you, my friend. We could just go lock and step, and we could, right? We love this stuff from that way. And so that was the path that I found, not just as a practitioner. So our oldest baby girl was born 2 weeks before I started my practice. So I'm literally graduating chiropractic school, going into this holistic world, literally lock and step with when I'm going in to be a parent. So I'm not just learning and investigating this stuff so I can put on a workshop and help my patient. I think a lot of times people just think natural people and chiropractors like, oh, we just net. We've chose to decide opposite of what the medical system does because we're anti-medicine. No, we're not. Medicine, surgeries, medications saved Oliver's life too. He's a medical miracle and he's a chiropractic miracle. So we are which one works best when. And so when I started to investigate this, my brain works like yours. Okay, just replace chemistry with microbiology with neurology, right? The rest is all the same. And I started to look into what happens to the immune system when you just onslaught it with that sheer number. And I know for a lot of my colleagues and a lot of people that work alongside of us in these incredible organizations, to them, it's the adjuvants, right? It's the thimerosal, the aluminum conversation. And they go down that road and they go, this is a big deal to us. I get that. To me, the immune system, absolute blatant disruption. The way the science, the neurophysiology and the neurochemistry of the vaccination that early, so parents listening, this is how we simplify it. That early, that often, and then the adjuvants just make this make this worse. That's what they're in there for. They actually hyper-excite things. Mm-hmm. When you do that many, that early, that often, you completely train the immune system for chronic illness. So this system is coming back from back in the day when people still, the sewage, literally, it isn't the vaccines that cleared all this up. It's toilets. Literally, it's the Frigidaire and Stanley is who we should be parading around town and saying, thank you for getting, right? Thank you for getting, we're not drinking toilet water anymore. And if you think I'm crazy, look it up. That's true. And so what happens is we have said, these 13, 14 acute issues, we're going to still, all these years later, save your baby from these acute issues. But when you really teach parents this in trading, for what? Like when I grew up, Iowa farm kid, we used to trade baseball cards, right? Do I really want to trade a slightly marginally lower risk for a disease that isn't even in the community at all, for a markedly, massively increased risk of autoimmune and chronic issues, which, by the way, the medical system, they can't help with that. They're sure good at creating it, but they don't have any help to do it. So that's where we try, and thank you for that's where we try and get parents to really understand the science of immunology that says, even if you kind of accept, oh, this is going to work, my kids aren't going to get these 13, 14 things, what are they going to get instead? What are the, what road are they going down with their immune system? And the immune system connects to the nervous system, which is where we get into the autism, ADHD, seizure, because no one system operates in a vacuum. That's not how God designed it.
Nope.
There's spillover effect with it. So, okay. So let's get into this before we run out of time on this. Informed Choice Iowa. You guys now made these incredible changes to make sure your kids, your family stayed strong, stayed healthy, live this way. And then you said, let's link up and help other families get this way. So what's the purpose? What's the why behind Informed Choice Iowa? And what does the action look like?
Yeah, we really just want parents, like you said, to have that education to make that informed decision for their family. We don't tell you not to get any shots. No, we don't say to get all of them. It's really the decision you're comfortable with. A lot of us have stopped vaccinating once you get enough information, but that's the other part too. I think kind of being that beginning mom looking into this is getting that tribe also, because if you get people around you that are asking the same questions, that are thinking the same thing you are, what you're thinking is that like God-given like butterfly in your tummy. So a big thing ICI does is a legislative piece. So Lindsay is our legislative liaison. And I think Leah talked about this a lot, is getting the right people in the right seats. And so we have done a really good job partnering with them and doing a lot of call to actions to get the right people voted in. Where's my note? We had 23 bills that we were monitoring this last session that we were in favor of. Mm-hmm. 5 that we monitored and 0 we were trying to kill. And if you look at that from when we first started, it's a complete 180. And the bill we got passed this year, it was such a silly bill. It literally was telling schools and daycare providers that they have to disclose the current law that medical and religious exemptions are allowed in school, because so many of them were telling parents, you have to get vaccinated to go to school. Yeah. And it wasn't the law, but now they legally have to tell people, and we are still battling, even though it became effective July 1. But it was on local news. You don't have to vaccinate your kids to go to school, which that in of itself is remarkable to see at 6:00. My friend, I almost need you to go, but I feel like I now get to be a parent when they learn about the awesome things that we could teach them. I feel like I need you to go back and say all that verbatim again one more time, so me, now an Illinois resident, can believe you. Guys, I'm like the guy who never shuts up. I don't have words for that. How are you? That is so incredible for the health of our families. I know exactly what that's going to add up to. 1, empowered, informed parents. You get empowered, informed parents, you can change anything in the world you want. 2nd, healthy kids. You get healthy kids, they can take on the world however they want. Like after that list of 2 things, that's me. That's what I'm here for, right? To do those 2 things. Who thought of because we don't know, and I know a lot of parents are going to want to get active into their state. Take that bill right there, requiring them to say, hey, you do have a choice. These exemptions are here. This state honors them. This is how it works. Who thought of that? What's the literal beginning of that? Did you guys craft that policy and then help legislators bring it? What does that literally look like, step 1? Yeah.
Well, let me start back at the beginning for 1 second, Gabby, before you take it away. Yeah. Our first thing that we did as an organization in 2017 was we wrote letters to every school district in the state and told them what the law said, that religious and medical exemptions exist. It's part of 139A.8, where you're talking about immunizations. You need to also disclose them, right? Just from a law standpoint. So we did that in 2017, and 8 years later, here we are. Go ahead, Debbie.
Yeah. And there was a bill a few years ago. It didn't really go anywhere. Being at the Capitol, so I'm 100 miles from the Capitol. I drive down there quite often. COVID happened and a school board position seat came open, and I was not going to have a mask to put on my daughter. So I joined the school board. I was talking to our superintendent about it, and he goes, I legally don't have to disclose that.
Yep.
So I instantly text Lindsay and was like, oh, we're going to make him disclose it.
So they got away. So what do they call that? The white lie, meaning like you didn't say it out loud, but you also didn't tell somebody the truth, right? You just exist in the middle. Boy, if there is one way that the medical, political, academic, often, kind of good conjoined at the hip system, if that's how they love to operate, it's like, well, we'll just stay quiet intentionally. We'll just drift this and throw this under the rug intentionally. And then it's parents who are literally, because if everything has to be stated, that's the definition of informed choice. So actually, can you guys take us there? Like if you were to just give, kind of the elevator version of what informed choice is and how parents would know whether they're getting it from their doctors or whether they're getting it from their school administrators and community, like what's informed choice broken down to its black and white?
Oof. There's a lot of levels to that. I would say informed choice is not the 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that your pediatrician is going to give you as they're forcing you to vaccinate your child, or they're threatening to call child services on you. You really do have to take it into your own hands, do research, know what the laws are, and it takes work to be able to make that informed decision. I don't question everything, but there is an amount of skepticism that you have to have anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's with everything. I mean, even just paperwork that you're submitting to school. I know a physical form just came out for sports physicals, and they're asking some of the most invasive questions on sports physical forms now that you don't have to answer. Like, you do not have to tell your school when your daughter started her period. That is just ridiculous, right? So there's things that as parents, we need to say, is this required? Why is this required? Who's getting this information? Right? Because the amount of privacy versus also just information, we are giving up way too much of that right now in this world. But yeah, the informed consent is just an informed choice. You just have to ask questions. What are the risks? What are the benefits? What are the alternatives? And then it has to be a voluntary decision. Mm-hmm. And it's, as you know, in medicine, right, they have to understand all of those things before they can make that decision. And so that's what we want to provide, is just making sure the environment is free to make a choice and providing information that they can do that.
I love it. And I'll apply, take my Iowa farmer, simple route to this and just say it's a mentality. It's a foundational principle you really want to have for your family, where you're constantly wanting to know. You need to know. You deserve to know. And you can't make your best decisions without full access to the information. So you nailed it, you guys. You got to work for it. You got to be willing to ask the hard questions. You got to be willing to slow down your decisions until you can gather the right information. And then I love it. You guys said it earlier, and it might be the most important thing to really lean into. Don't do it alone. Find that it doesn't matter whether you have I miss Iowa. Every day I miss Iowa, but now today, and I live in Illinois, it couldn't be any different. There's just one muddy, toxic river between us. How is it so different? I know that answer. We'll save that for but
it's a whole nother subject.
Yeah, it's a whole nother subject. But so the truth is, no matter the state you live in, where it's much more welcome, and for you guys living in the thick of where you are, I'm sure you would have you're like, it's not as easy as it looks on the outside, Illinois boy, for all the hard work you do. So what you deserve first is thank you. And we're going to rally the troops to get to the conference here in a second. But in their states, no matter where they are, there's a crew, isn't there? There's informed parents. There's some group, some connection. And how important would you guys say that is to not go this alone?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, that first time mom sitting in that doctor's office, you go there because that's the person that you want to trust. And if that's the voice you're listening to and you don't have anyone else giving you that information, any other options, opinions, having that group definitely helps.
Awesome. And would you say having another provider who understands neuroscience, honors informed choice, I just got to ask, because I find it to get out of the system, you got to get into a different one. If you're going to leave somewhere, you got to be able to go somewhere to get answers, to get help, to get care. How essential is it for you guys to have the chiropractor you have on your team? Is that a very important person, not only for the adjustments, but for the conversation and help making decisions for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up when I filled out my school form physical, it was my chiropractor. My mom was like, well, they didn't say we couldn't. So, I mean, that's been always in my life. And we go every couple weeks to get adjusted, and they do bring a different perspective that I definitely value.
Yep. Same.
Awesome. Okay. So Miss Lindsay, I know you've got to run. Could you give us then, before you do, could you tell us about November, the conference, and just how, and not just that, obviously there's all sorts of things that you guys have happening. What's the best place for them, especially if they are local or near? And everybody who doesn't live in Iowa, go check out everything with the ICI, because not only could you support from afar, but you could learn from afar. This is a wonderful organization. Clearly, we only covered the surface of what they're getting done, and that needs to get done in every state. So what are the best places for them to tap into you guys and your resources?
Yeah, so our social media pages are probably best. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We do have a website, Informed Choice Iowa, all spelled out.com. There is another website very similar to ours, and if you Google search it, they will come up and we will not. So informedchoiceiowa.com is the best way to connect with us. But we do have a lot of resources on there for people to utilize and to point to other organizations, Children's Health Defense, Stand for Health Freedom, NBIC, all of those. And so if you're looking for a place to start, that's a good one. But we would love to help connect you with a local group if you don't have one, and help, invite you to the conference.
I was going to say, don't you think everybody should fly into DSM? It's a wonderful airport. When O'Hare is your home airport, you get to go to these. I love Des Moines, Omaha. Those are the best airports. A little more beep, beep, bop. You're right there a little bit quicker. So November 21st, I get to come and jam and kick us off. But it's Reclaim Your Health. Give them another 1 minute on what the conference is going to be about.
Yeah, so this year we're doing things a little different. We really want parents to be able to not just leave with scientific knowledge, because it's good to get that base, but some tangible items that they can go home and implement into their life. We've started doing a mom's panel, which has been very powerful, because then you're not alone. Someone else has went through that same thing I did, and it just empowers you more to just stand strong for your family.
Awesome. Amazing. Yeah, there's the mom voices. That's why we have you guys on. And it's so cool to have the mom voice who loves biochemistry, the mom voice coming in from the bank, ready to take over there. The mom voice, Leah. Oh my goodness. Leah's the last person in the world I would ever cross. The mom voices carry all the way. We get to work along, and dads too. I forget to talk about us, but we're wired the way we are. And when we become informed and we get our community around us too, we're a very strong support voice for our families as well. So you two, thank you a million times over. I cannot wait to cross that river. I am going to probably stop in Davenport, get some Whitey's ice cream. Don't worry, I will I'll be fine. Definitely not going to stop in Iowa City, Lindsay, because that's the most boring town in the entire world. And I will see you in Des Moines in November. Can't thank you guys enough. Let's get some more action going on Instagram. We'll continue to make sure our community knows, not just the podcast community, but our social media community knows about the work you do. Thank you guys for joining us. Have an awesome day.
Thank you.